Pioneer Ministry and Welfare. Rumors of Jehovah's Witnesses welfare pioneers. Those familiar faces we often see standing on street corners, they look like deeply devoted volunteers engaged in active ministry, don't they? However, doesn't a certain question come to mind? When do they actually work, and how do they make a living? While the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is funded and operated through donations, what about the rank-and-file believers at the bottom? In fact, an astonishing life hack is being shared among a certain segment of believers in Japan. It is the choice to receive state aid while devoting themselves full-time to religious activities. Hello, good evening, and good morning. This is Aki. Today, I am going to talk about a rumor regarding the warped reality that lies on the boundary line between religious devotion and the burden placed on taxpayers. Keep in mind, this is strictly a rumor.
That sister has been a regular pioneer for 10 years now, but I wonder when she actually works. She only seems to...
Within the organization, those who dedicate 50 hours or more a month to the preaching work are called pioneers and are treated like heroes. On the other hand, the organization discourages higher education, university, and teaches members to shun full-time employment, labeling it as a worldly distraction that hinders spiritual growth. As a result, many believers engage in irregular employment or low-wage labor. Furthermore, a significant number of them have unpaid national pensions. They are economically impoverished. Yet, how is it possible for them to dedicate themselves to field service every single day? Don't work, but do preach. The solution that surfaces to meet these contradictory demands is public assistance, welfare. While the organization officially states to pay taxes honestly, they turn a blind eye when individual believers continue pioneering while on welfare. In some places, the atmosphere views this positively as a provision from Jehovah, while in other cases, it becomes a source of deep resentment. First, let us sort out the public assistance system in Japan as foundational knowledge. The requirements for eligibility set by the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare are primarily built upon 4 pillars. Let us examine how these pillars clash with the lifestyle of a pioneer. Part 1. Utilization of assets. All savings, real estate, precious metals, etc. must be liquidated and used for living expenses. A particular issue arises with automobiles. In principle, owning a car is not permitted under public assistance. However, a car is indispensable for ministry in rural areas. Here, they sometimes resort to gray area methods, such as putting the car under an acquaintance's name or claiming it is necessary for hospital visits on official applications. Pledging loyalty to God while submitting opaque reports to the government, this hypocrisy breeds a sense of unfairness within the congregation. Part 2. Utilization of ability. Those who have the ability to work must utilize that ability to its absolute maximum. This is the most critical point. Receiving welfare is predicated on the condition that you cannot work due to illness or injury. Yet these pioneer sisters tell the welfare office, "I cannot work due to depression," or "My body is weak, so a part-time job of a few hours a week is my limit." Meanwhile, in their ministry, they walk for miles under the midsummer sun, pulling heavy literature carts and visiting homes. "I cannot perform secular labor, but I can do 50 hours of religious activity a month." From the standpoint of common social sense, this logic clearly deviates from the true purpose of the welfare system. Part 3. Utilization of all available means. Welfare is granted only if the minimum cost of living cannot be met, even after utilizing all other systems, such as pensions and benefits. As mentioned earlier, because of low income or the belief that the end is near, many have unpaid pensions, creating situations where they cannot rely on a pension at all. Part 4. Support from relatives. The applicant must be unable to receive support from relatives within the third degree of kinship. In the case of second-generation believers, financial support from parents, the duty of support, is verified. However, since the parents are often believers themselves and equally impoverished, there is a structure where they easily pass this check. It is a twisted irony. The welfare system is originally meant to protect vulnerable individuals who cannot work due to health or circumstances. However, in the world of Jehovah's Witnesses, a deliberate choice is made. Even though I have the ability to work, I will intentionally choose not to work or suppress my income to secure time for preaching. They tell the government offices that they are unwell or cannot find work, yet they vigorously walk around every day, visiting homes and distributing pamphlets. For a religion that supposedly values honesty, how can this possibly be justified?
Since I started pioneering, my needs...
Such experiences are frequently shared at conventions of Jehovah's Witnesses. Believers listen, feel deeply moved that Jehovah performed a miracle, and applaud. But if the true identity of that behind-the-scenes provision is public assistance funded by the taxpayers' hard-earned money, can it really be called a miracle? The organization, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, constantly solicits donations from its members. Some believers even take a small portion of their welfare money and donate it to the organization. In other words, a structure emerges where tax money indirectly becomes a source of funds for a religious group. The organization turns a blind eye while fully aware of this reality. Why? Because to them, pioneers represent valuable labor that works for free. Rather than having believers become economically independent, it is far more convenient for the organization if they remain barely afloat on welfare, dedicating all their time to field service. Currently, the Japanese government is tightening measures against child abuse motivated by religious backgrounds. This includes the restriction of education and stripping away future options. Pressuring youth from an early age by saying, do not go to university, become a pioneer, and consequently mass-producing adults who have no choice but to rely on welfare, isn't this a form of economic neglect? Believers are currently suing the government, claiming their freedom of religion is being violated. Yet they remain utterly oblivious to the fact that the very foundation supporting that freedom is the tax system of the world, or secular society, that they reject. Believers plead for freedom of religion. But what is the foundation that supports that freedom? The organization forces members to abandon education and careers, driving them into poverty. Then, while shifting the burden of taking care of these believers' livelihoods onto the state, the organization siphons off only the members' resource of time to expand itself. It is no exaggeration to say that this has effectively become an indirect government subsidy to a religious organization. Believers plead for freedom of religion, but what is the foundation that supports that freedom? The organization forces members to abandon education and careers, driving them into poverty. Then, while shifting the burden of taking care of these believers' livelihoods onto the state, the organization siphons off only the members' resource of time to expand itself. It is no exaggeration to say that this has effectively become an indirect government subsidy to a religious organization. Allow me to reiterate, this is merely a rumor that I came across online. Not all pioneers are receiving public assistance. However, dedicating over 50 hours a month to the organization's missionary work requires an inevitable adjustment of working hours. While there are various ways to secure living expenses, such as asset management, working part-time, parental support, or the income of a non-believing husband, it is possible that public assistance is included among those methods. I hope this story turns out to be false. The truth remains in the dark. How is it in your country? Do people start their pioneer service only after saving up sufficient funds?